Welcome to this week's Ask EMBN show. Once again, I'm joined by Henry from GMBN Tech. How you doing?
Yeah, pretty good. Yeah, Steve's still on his holidays in Ibiza.
He is
partying it up, clubbing hard. Apparently, like his bikes, he also likes his music. Pretty electric. Big scooter fan, that man. Are you ready? Loves it.
Once again, we've got loads of questions, so let's dive straight in.
So, first of all, we have a question from Tom Holmes. And he says, "Hi guys, big fan of the show," which is always lovely to hear. "I'm looking to purchase my first eMTB. I just have a question regarding insurance. I've been hearing a lot recently about thieves targeting e-bikes, with e-bikes being £5,000 and maybe even more. How do you guys insure your bikes?"
Well, yeah, sadly, obviously, e-bikes are quite a target from thieves with the expense of them. But insurance-wise, I do insure all my e-bikes at home, and I'd just be super cautious that you're not trying to insure them under your home policy, because a lot of people think that their bikes are actually protected by their home insurance. But actually, when you look into the paperwork, it's only going to be a few £100s, certainly not enough to cover an e-bike's worth. So I would go for a specialist company. Obviously, just Google that and tell them exactly how much your bike's worth, including all the extras, your helmet, extra batteries, backpacks, riding kit, all that stuff on top as well. Add it all into a big price, and that is where you can get your quote from.
I think when people do those quotes and they see how sort of expensive their premium might be, there's always a temptation to undervalue what they have, and they think, but what's the point? You may as well
not have
nothing.
Yeah,
totally.
Next up, Timmy Tripod. He's saying, "Guys, love the show. Cheers. I've recently picked up my Canyon Spectral and love it. Thing is, I seem to be getting a lot of pedal strikes out on the trails. Any tips for less strikes?"
I would say the first thing to think of is your sag.
Yeah.
You actually did that really good video about the importance of sag and how it affects all the kind of characteristics of our geometry.
Yeah.
The next thing is there is a large degree of timing. Sometimes people running potentially quite high stack pedals. That's something that I'm a bit prissy on.
More narrow profile
I do
pedals.
like the narrow profile pedals. And often when I get on a new bike, it just takes a while to acclimatise.
Yeah, definitely.
And you might think, this is quite difficult, especially with modern bikes being so long and low.
Yeah.
But soon enough, you kind of forget it even happened. And it's amazing how quickly your brain conditions yourself.
Yeah, and I think one thing that a few people do is actually switch to shorter cranks, which sometimes leads to less pedal strikes as well. You can drop sort of 10 mil off the crank length. But as Henry said, I think you need to look ahead and really plan where you're pedaling on a climb. It's almost like, when I'm looking at a climb, if it is technical, I kind of think as footsteps. Like, I know my forward crank is going to be down there, and my next crank is going to be there, and I'm kind of planning it up the trail, almost like, as I say, footsteps. And if you can see that you're going to get a pedal strike, like on a downstroke, then you kind of need to inject a bit more speed into the trail, so you're gliding past it. Yeah. So it's just kind of looking ahead and planning those pedal inputs.
And you can also do, when you're riding perhaps across a amount of water on the through a river or something, and you just do these, just literally if you're going to strike, just a jab to get you over it, and then go to the next stroke.
Yeah, definitely.
So next we have a question from Mr. Nuttum, I'm going to go for. And he says, "Hi, I currently ride a Canyon Torque and is used for mostly push bike trails and parks. I'm on the hunt for a cheap eMTB, which will be his first one, for everyday use and some moderate trails. And if it is a hit, he will also consider changing his torque for a proper eMTB. There are so many unknown bike manufacturers, and I was looking at this Rock Machine Blizz E50 hardtail with 27.5 plus wheels and a Steps E8000 motor at £1,700. What do you think?" It does.
So I checked the bike out online, and it does look pretty capable and bang on for the kind of riding that you're intending, but it isn't quite the e-bike version of the Canyon Torque. It's a 170mm bike, so the experience that you get on that bike, translating it across to the e-bike that you're intending to buy and out on the trail, isn't going to be kind of the same experience.
Yeah,
what's your thoughts?
It's not really apples for apples.
No.
I mean, I would say if you are happy to potentially, like I said, dip your toes.
Yeah.
Might take a kind of a monetary hit if you did want to sell it on, but it sounds like you've got your mountain bike for that, and this will always be a very capable sort of commuter and a bike to razz around town, and probably a very useful bike. But you're totally right. If you were to go mountain biking, you're probably going to have a largely different experience, and it probably won't showcase what all the things an e-bike could do.
Potentially do.
On the way up and the way down.
Yeah. I think, you're going to be more limited, possibly on the way down on a hardtail than you would be, obviously, on a full suspension bike. But, give it a go, see if you get the bug, and then maybe progress onto that full suspension bike. But we've actually done a video, hardtail versus full suspension. That's on screen. Yeah, this is mountain biking for a lot of people though, Steve.
Yeah, how's it feeling?
Yeah, really good, super efficient. Every downstroke on those pedals, I can feel that delivery going straight to the back wheel rather than bobbing around.
One thing, you can't confuse efficiency, feeling versus fact. And I reckon this bike is equally as efficient as that bike with it locked out.
You reckon?
Yeah, totally. But you know what? I think it's time to take this double track to single track. That's where mountain biking really begins.
Next, we have a question from Amanda Ensign. And she asks, will the new Bosch motor be compatible on e-bikes with the previous generation Bosch motor with 500 watt-hour battery? Can I put it on my 2019 Kona remote control? Now, I'm not an expert like you, Chris. Can you just get a hacksaw out, maybe an angle grinder, slap them together with some PVA glue?
No, unfortunately, the new generation Bosch motor is considerably smaller than the old one, so there's going to be a massive difference there. But hopefully, I was thinking about this, maybe someone will come up with like some adapter plates or something, so you could maybe use the original mounts, convert it across to the new motor mount. That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah,
so get in your shed tinkering.
Next, we have a question from Jane Davies. And she says, my husband keeps on to me about buying an e-bike to start mountain biking. I'm 5 foot tall. Are there any women's bikes out there? And how do they differ from the men's bikes? Now, this question's particularly close to my heart because, I'm basically part of the furniture here now, Chris. I've been on the show a fair bit. And it just so happens my missus is also 5 foot tall.
Right.
And she's also on the lookout to an e-bike.
Is she?
And actually, I tend to size my e-bikes a bit differently. I mean, it's about time I got a staff bike, don't you think? And I would normally ride an extra small women's.
Oh, of course you would, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, normal mount on conventional bikes, I had a large men's size. E-bikes for
extra small women's.
Yeah, just
floral design, right?
Floored, preferably some nice colours on there, accented. And that's just the way I like it. So I think it's great that they make extra small women's bikes.
They definitely do, yeah.
Which can be, Canyon do lots of sizes. So Canyon, if you're listening, that's also the bike I would go for.
Gonna send you
what do you think?
Yeah, well, the main difference obviously is in the sizing. You find in the women's range, especially on the Canyon stuff, it's normally from extra small to medium. You don't actually get the large and the XL versions in the Canyon range. And the main difference is going to be your contact points, kind of like the saddle, grips. And I think the geometry is slightly different as well, shorter top tube. And what else we've got? The smaller models tend to have 27.5 wheels front and rear, whereas the bigger bikes are obviously 29 at front, 27.5 rear. So
often
a few differences.
Often on the women's bikes as well, you get a narrower handlebar because what that effectively does is bring your reach back in. Not the reach, the geometry number, but more the sensation.
Yeah.
And it makes it a bit kind of easier to manipulate on the trailing.
Yeah.
Do what it's told.
Exactly. But get along to a demo day is my advice on that as well. Just see which one's right for you. And we've done a video on exactly that.
So what are the methods then to demo your first e-bike? Well, the first way is by a brand demo day. They're individual and they're custom for that brand only. Second way could be festivals or maybe bike races. And then of course you've got magazines who have their own custom demo days too, where they bring in lots of brands from around the market.
So the second option is heading to an independent bike store like Raceco Cycles here in Stourbridge. Obviously there's a standard car park test where you can head out the front, have a bounce around on the suspension, try the different power modes.
Or you could ride it on the showroom floor as well, like Chris did earlier.
Yeah, definitely. Or next up, they do a one-to-one service where they head out to your local trails with different bikes in the van for you to try out on the trails that you ride. And lastly, you can borrow a bike for a weekend, leave a deposit and ride the trails that you ride all the time to take a true comparison on the different e-bike.
Now obviously there's a deposit involved if you're doing such a test like that, but we'll be covering that off a little bit later on. I think the final way, Chris, is actually to borrow an e-bike off your friend. Yeah. So I think it's time to start making a load of friends.
Loads of friends, make sure they got e-bikes. Okay, next up we've got this question in from SWH. He's saying, why has there not been a huge revolt against Presta Valves in mountain bikes? They suck. I drilled out my rims and installed a tubeless Schrader valve. Life just became more enjoyable.
Wow, I mean, to be honest, they're quite an inoffensive thing to me. I'm not really that much on any side. I'm just like, oh yeah, whatever.
Yeah.
I think it's probably to do with the width of your well, and it probably gives a smaller valve, means you can probably, it frees up, I imagine some design constraints.
Yeah.
They tend to be longer and potentially lighter, I mean, Presta valves aren't bad.
It's weird because the automotive industry obviously is pretty much. I think Presta Valves is only used in bicycles as far as I'm aware.
Yeah. And I mean, we used to use, I'm sure you did, a 20-inch child's inner tube. Sorry, a 20-inch wheel inner tube. I haven't stolen it from a child. Like, I'm having that. But we used to use them a lot for tubeless and used to drill out your rim and stuff.
Yeah.
But we've kind of left it behind. I mean, I don't really know why they suck.
No.
I think Presta valves are absolutely fine.
Yeah, they do have a few tendencies, like when your valve core gets stuck, and sometimes when you're undoing the valve cap and the valve core comes out.
Potentially.
So maybe I am.
Maybe
it's never something I've thought about, to be fair, but there are maybe a few plus
Viva
points.
la revolution.
Yeah,
I'm going to go right down this instant and tear out my Presta valves. Had enough. Get the drill. Next, we have a question from ARC, and they say, "Hi guys. During the week, I commute to work, but on the weekend, I'm out hitting a variety of trails, or I go out exploring my local area to find and ride goat tracks. Long story short, I do about 150 to 200 kilometers a week on my eMTB, and I'm wearing out tyres very quickly." Well, that's hardly surprising. Sounds like you're covering some miles.
Yep.
I currently have Maxxis Recons, which I think grip well. What tyres would you recommend for longevity, but also still grips well in the mud?
Quite a hard question, I think. It's always that trade-off when it comes to tyres. From experience, like if you want something that's going to grip well in the mud, then vice versa on the road, it's going to drag and it's not going to roll very well. But it seems like you're quite into your Maxxis tyres. And I think from my experience, the high roller always seems quite a good trade-off. It's quite a high rolling tyre, funnily enough. And the Crossmark as well, I've been using a little bit, and that seems pretty good. It's not sort of a super aggressive tyre, but it is something that is that good compromise. I find on the road it rolls really well and it does grip, but again it's slightly skinnier. It's got a lightweight tyre.
Apparently there was a tyre designer called Mark who was furious at his tyres wearing out, and that's where the Crossmark comes from.
Really?
He said no more, and he built a tyre around, and that's where it gets its name. So a fascinating bit of eMTB insight for you there.
Nice, I like that.
But it is a trade-off. It is about having your cake and eating it too.
Yeah.
I just try and just say namaste and not get angry at my tyres for wearing out, because it is annoying.
Yeah.
I think a good thing to go for is tread pattern largely affects how the mud clags up in there.
Yeah.
But compound.
Definitely, that's one of the big ones.
So stay away from 3C on the rear. It's a lovely thing to have. It's super grippy. Stay away from your super tackies. Go for a 60A compound. And, it's it can get a bit more life out your tyres.
Definitely.
Next, we have a question from Hasse Berkmos, and he say, "I love your show to bits." Well, that's just lovely. Good start. That's how you get your question answered. And he says, "Now for some nerdy stuff. Waiting for my new YT decoy to arrive, which is very exciting, and I want to swap the 11-speed SLX group for a 12-speed SRAM. It looks like the front of the chain rings from Shimano are either 11 or 12 speed specific. I haven't heard of this on the vintage MTBs. Do I need to change the front chainring?"
Well, from as far as I know, 11 and 12 speed, the only difference is the width of the chain. The pitch is going to be the same. So you're running a 1-by system. I take it on the decoy, obviously. So I don't think you should run into any problems myself.
Yeah, I mean, it'll probably be a case of it will probably work, but it will probably not be optimized.
Compromised.
It will be compromised, but it will not be optimized. Yeah. So if you think about a chainring with that narrow, wide technology, which is where the teeth alternate in profile, they want that width to sit very neatly. And if you change the width of your chain, it a bit narrower, it might not be quite so well. It's the same thing going on with Shimano at the moment, going to 12 speed. It probably won't be so chamfered, is that the word? Chamfered.
Yeah.
For that kind of really neat meshing together.
Yeah.
I'd also say be careful, you just say about converting. If you're going from 11-speed Shimano to 12-speed SRAM, about which SRAM cassette you get, because the freehub body could be different.
Exactly, the driver and stuff.
Bit of a nuisance.
Definitely. Next one is then from JaffaCakes32. He's saying, "I've lost my key to my battery on my high bike Enduro. I tend to do big rides and I use my second battery. Any ideas on how to get my battery out?"
I mean, I don't know much about e-bikes, but that's terminalism. Put it in the canal, get a new e-bike. Is that what happens?
Yeah, possibly, but Basically, it depends what motor system you've got on there. If it's a Bosch system, then hopefully the dealer, when they send the bike out, should record that key number on the system for you. So when they plug the bike in, it's going to tell you the actual key number. But if you have got a different motor on there, say like the Yamaha, things like that as well, it should originally come with 2 keys, and hopefully you should have stored one of those keys, as we all do in our key drawer at home.
Captain Hindsight on the case.
Or maybe made a note of the actual key. But if it comes to it, you can take that bike to a dealer, and some of them can drill the actual lock out as well, but it's not something you want to be doing yourself. You just want to get a proper locksmith in there, drill the actual barrel out, and you can get a replacement barrel for the actual thing. So that is drastic measures, but something you definitely don't want to be doing by yourself.
Yeah, totally. Sounds like a big job. Next one is a question from Fotley, I think it is. I'm sorry if I'm butchering that. Fotley. Anyway, he says, "Hi guys, I'm planning to swap my tyres for the new Schwalbe Eddy Current eMTB specific. I need some help as I'm not that clear on sizes for front and rear. It seems there is only 29 for the front and 27.5 for the rear. My bike is 27.5 front and rear. Is this the case? Can I use the 27.5 Eddy Current tyres at front and rear, or is the particular tyre exclusively to be used as either a front or a rear tyre?"
Well, the Eddy Current is actually designed as front and rear specific, so you definitely need to have one on the front and one on the rear. The knobs are all different and the space and things like that. And the tyre is actually available in 27.5 front and rear, so you shouldn't have a problem finding that. But obviously there is some, I know some guys used to use like the Minion DHF, was it, on the rear as well as the front, and the DHR vice versa, isn't that right?
I mean, I guess with a front tyre, it tends to be more penetrative in terms of getting through loose stuff. So it tends to be slightly taller in profile. Some people really like that on the back as well. Similarly, rear tyre, because it tends to have more side load going through it, it tends to have a slightly shorter or lower stack in terms of the knobs. So that means it gets less roll, which similarly some people like on the front. So it will work. It will, yet again, probably not be optimised.
Yeah, again, that's exactly that. I think if you are going to be going down the route with the Eddy Currents, then you definitely should get a front and a rear tyre to get the most out of those tyres themselves. Unfortunately, that's it for this week's Ask EMBN show. Thanks again for coming on the show, Henry.
Oh, my pleasure. I assume the man himself will be back next week.
He should be.
So hopefully you'll be providing him with some Gatorade and some After Sun, because he'll bloody need it. But yeah, if you want to stick with the channel and see what we got up to when we did the commuter race, car versus e-bike, it was all very exciting. I thoroughly recommend you watch it.
Yeah, and don't forget, if you guys got any questions you want to ask us here on Ask EMBN, drop them in the comments box below, hashtag Ask EMBN, and we could get back to you on next week's show. Give us a thumbs up if you enjoyed it, click the link in the middle to subscribe to EMBN, and we'll see you next week.